Okay, I am back. I am on problem number 6, part A. Now, in the last video, I did synthetic division for this problem. Now I'm going to do line division for this problem. And I apologize again. A colleague and I were working on this together, and there was some tweaking done that I didn't keep up with, and so the problems were slightly different than I was expecting. So I apologize. Hopefully that will not happen again. So here we've got x minus 5, and we are dividing that into 4x to the third minus 21x squared plus 3x plus 13. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at this x, and I'm going to look at this 4x to the third. And I'm going to ask myself, what do I multiply x by to get 4x to the third? And the answer to that is 4x squared. And notice that I am putting that over where I have the x squared in this polynomial. That's where it goes. So I've got x squared, and I've got it over the x squared. Okay, so x times 4x squared gives me 4x to the third. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this 4x squared times my binomial. So 4x squared times negative 5 is going to give me negative 20x squared. 4x squared times x is going to give me 4x to the third. And this is where students very often make their mistakes. You have to remember that we are subtracting. So we are subtracting 4x to the third minus 4x to the third. Then we are subtracting a negative. And when we subtract a negative, we end up with a positive. Okay, so our 4x to the third and our 4x to the third cancel. Our negative 21x squared plus 20x squared gives us a positive x squared. Then I'm going to bring down my 3x. Now I'm going to ask myself, x times what gives me 1x? And this actually should be negative 1x squared, because negative 21x squared plus 20x squared is negative 1x squared. So x times what gives me negative 1x squared? And the answer to that is going to be negative 1x. And that's why, because negative 1x times x gives me negative 1x squared. Okay, so now I'm going to take my negative 1x and multiply it times my binomial. Negative 1x times negative 5 is going to be positive 5x. Okay, then we have negative 1 times x, and that gives me negative 1x squared. And remember, we are subtracting. So when I subtract this, my signs are opposite. Okay? So I am left with negative 1x squared and positive 1x squared canceling. Then I've got 3 plus negative 5x, and that is going to give me negative 2x. Then I bring down my plus 13. X times what gives me negative 2x. So I'm saying x times what gives me negative 2x. And that is going to be negative 2. And I am going to multiply that. Negative 2 times negative 5 is going to be positive 10. Negative 2 times x is going to be negative 2x. I am subtracting. So I've got to change those signs because I am subtracting. Okay, my negative 2's cancel, and I'm left with 3. So I'm left with 3 here. So that is my remainder. I have a remainder of 3. But the way we write that is 3 over this right here. So I have 3 over x minus 5. So my final answer here is 4x squared minus x minus 2 plus 3 over x minus 5. And that is my final answer. Now that was a little messy, so we are going to do that one, or do one like that again. So this was A, so now I'm going to do B. Okay, B is 3x to the third plus 7x squared minus 13x minus 21. and we are dividing that by x plus 3. So I'm going to use synthetic division first. And when synthetic division, I take each one of my coefficients and I write that down. So I have 3, then I have 7, negative 13, and negative 21. Then what goes in the box is I take what I'm dividing by, I set that equal to 0. So I have x plus 3 equals 0, and I'm left with x equals negative 3. So that's my solution. X plus 3 is my factor, and negative 3 is my solution associated with that factor. So it's the negative 3 that I put inside my box right here. Okay? So we're going to do synthetic division. I bring my 3 down. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. 7 and negative 9 is negative 2. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Negative 13 plus positive 6 is negative 7. Negative 3 times negative 7 is positive 21. Negative 21 plus 21 is 0. So the good thing about this one is we don't have a remainder, okay? This 0 right here means there's no remainder. So my final answer to this one is 3x squared minus 2x minus 7. Now, I also want to do that one using long division. So I am going to erase this, and I am going to put this in the long division format. So inside my box goes my longer polynomial. So I am going to have 3x to the third plus 7x squared minus 13x minus 21 inside my box, and I am dividing by x plus 3. So first thing I do, x times what gives me 3x to the third? And the answer to that is 3x squared. 3x squared times 3 is 9x squared. 3x squared times x is 3x to the third. And we are subtracting, okay? So both of those were positive, so we have to change the sign to negative. Okay, so 3x to the third minus 3x to the third cancels out. Then I'm left with negative 2x squared, and I bring down my negative 13x. So now I say x times what gives me negative 2x squared. And the answer to that is minus 2x, because negative 2x times x is going to give me negative 2x squared. Now, we are subtracting, so both of these signs are going to become their opposite. Okay, they were negative. Because I am subtracting, they both become positive. Okay? Sorry, I made another mistake. You guys are going to fire me. Okay. I prefer synthetic division. Can you tell? So I have negative 2x squared minus 13x. We've already decided that negative 2x is what we multiply x by to get negative 2x squared. So now I've got to do negative 2x times 3. That gives me negative 6x. And I do negative 2x times x, which gives me negative 2x squared. Okay? Now I change those signs. That's what I have to do, is to change those signs. So now this cancels. Over here, I've got negative 13x plus 6x. That leaves me with negative 7x. Okay? Then I'm going to bring down my minus 21. X times negative 7 gives me negative 7x. So I've written my negative 7 up here. Negative 7 times 3 is negative 21. Negative 7 times x is negative 7x. We change our minuses to plus. Negative 7x and positive 7x cancel. Negative 21 and positive 21 cancel. So we have no remainder. So our final answer is 3x squared minus 2x minus 7. Okay? Whew, let's leave division behind us. Okay. Let's move on to number 7. Let's move on to number 7. So I've got 7a. What we're doing is we're still solving. Okay, we're still solving. The reason we're solving is, one, because the directions are telling us to solve, but also because we've got our equal sign right here. Now, this is different than linear. We've solved some linear equations and some linear inequalities, but now we've got that x squared. So now we are solving a quadratic. So that x squared means that we have to set this equal to 0, and then we're going to factor. So what I've got to do is I've got to subtract 2x and 3 from both sides. So I'm going to subtract 2x, and I'm going to subtract -3 from both sides. So then I am left with 0 on the right-hand side. Then I have 3x squared minus 2x minus 1. Okay, now that we have this set equal to 0, we're going to factor it. I have to use the AC method, so I say 3 times -1. So my product is going to be -3, and my sum is my b value, and that's going to be -2. So I need two numbers multiplied together that give me -3, and added together give me -2. So my two numbers are going to be -3 and +1. So I split this number right here. So I have 3x squared minus 3x plus 1x minus 1. Okay, now we're going to factor by grouping. I take a 3x out. I'm left with x minus 1. My second set, I just pull out a 1, and it's +1. I'm left with x minus 1. Okay, so I have 3x plus 1 and x minus 1. So I have factored that. Now I'm going to set each one of these equal to 0. So I have 3x plus 1 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. So then if I subtract 1 from both sides and then divide by 3, so one of my answers is x equals -1/3, and my other answer is x equals 1. So -1/3 and x equals 1 are my two answers. Okay, now we are going to do 7e. 7e. What we have to do with this one is we have to FOIL first. Okay, this is not set equal to 0. Okay, so we have to FOIL first, then we have to set it equal to 0. Okay, that's what we have to do right here. So I'm going to FOIL. N times n is n squared. N times 7, 7n. -2 times n is -2n. -2 times 7 is -14. Okay. I'm going to combine like terms. So I have n squared plus 5n minus 14 equals -18. Now, my next step is I've got to set this equal to 0. Okay. So I'm going to add 18 to both sides. So I have n squared plus 5n plus 4 equals 0. The sum that I'm looking for is +5. The product that I'm looking for is 4. And the two numbers that multiply together to give me 4 and add together to give me 5 are 4 and 1. Now, we have a 1 in front of this n squared. Okay? So because this is a 1 and not something other than 1, I am able to just put my 4 and my 1 in. Okay, so I'm able to do n plus 4 and n plus 1. Okay, and that the only reason that I'm able to do that is because my n squared has a 1 in front of it. If it's like any of the others where it doesn't have a 1 in front of it, then you have to do your sum and your product, and you've got to split your middle term. Okay, now I'm going to do n plus 4 equals 0, n plus 1 equals 0, n is negative 4, or n is negative 1. Okay, so now we're going to do f, and then we're going to start doing some linear stuff. Okay, so this is f, and it is solved by the method of your choice. Solve by the method of your choice. Okay, so this is a great one for completing the square. This is a really good one for completing the square. So I'm going to solve this one by completing the square. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that negative 4 over. Okay. And when I move it over, I'm going to have positive 4 on the other side. Then I have x squared plus 8x. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to look at 1/2 of my b value. So I'm looking at 1/2 of 8. 1/2 of 8 is 4. And then I'm going to square that and get 16. So what I am going to add to both sides is 16. So I have x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 20. Now, my next step is to factor x squared plus 8x plus 4. This is a perfect square trinomial, and we designed it that way. We wanted it to be a perfect square trinomial, okay? Two numbers multiplied together that give me 16 and added together that give me 8 are 4 and 4. So I have x plus 4 and x plus 4, and I can write that as x plus 4 squared, okay? My next step, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Don't forget, when you take the square root on the right-hand side, you've got to put that plus or minus in there. So I'm left with x plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 20. Then I subtract 4 from both sides, and I'm left with x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 20. Now, we have to ask ourselves, can that be simplified further? Can that square root of 20 be simplified? And it can be simplified. Okay, there is a perfect square factor in there, and that perfect square factor is 4. So I have 4 times 5. I can take the square root of that 4. So negative 4 plus or minus 2, because the square root of 4 is 2 on the square root of 5. So negative 4 plus or minus 2 on the square root of 5 is your final answer. Okay? Now, you could have done that using the quadratic formula. So the next one I'm going to do using the quadratic formula. We're not quite to linears. I got a little bit ahead of myself. We're still solving quadratics. Okay, so let's do the next one. So this is h. This is x squared plus 14x minus 4. This is actually another really super good one for completing the square, because a is 1 and b is even. But I'm going to do this one using the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 AC, and that's all over 2a. Now the blue I am plugging in, and the red is part of the quadratic formula. So a, b, and c, for x squared plus 14x minus 4, a is 1, b is 14, and C is -4. Now we're going to be dealing with some pretty high numbers here because of that 14. So using completing the square on this would be a better option for you, because 14 squared is 196. And you're going to have to square that inside the square root sign. So using the completing the square would be pretty wise here, because we're going to be dealing with some larger numbers. So let's get started. So I have negative my b value, which is 14, plus or minus the square root of 14 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is -4. And that is all over 2 times a. Okay? So, now let's do some computation. -14 plus or minus the square root. 14 squared is 196. Okay? Then I have -4 times +1 times -4. So that is going to be plus 16. Because -4 times 1 is -4, times -4 is going to be positive 16. And then all of that is over 2. So I have -14 plus or minus the square root, and we're going to have to add 196 and 16. So I think that's going to give me 212, but we always want to kind of make sure. 6 plus 6 is 12. 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Yeah, so I've got 212. So I have 212 inside that radical. Okay, now you might stop right here. 212 is even. I can't think of anything that I can pull out of it really easily. So I think we need to do our factor tree and see what we come up with. So I have 212. You should know immediately that you can get a 2 out of that. Okay? And when you get a 2 out of that, you also get a 106. And so again, you're going to get another 2. And then it looks like 53. Is that right? Yeah. And I think 53 is prime. So, I hope I haven't made another mistake. Just bear with me for just 1 second. I need to make sure I have the problem written down correctly. Okay. So 212 divided by 2 is going to be 106. And then 106 divided by 2 is going to be 53. Okay. So 212 is 2 and 106. And 106 is 2 and 53. Okay. So it looks like I have another one that I need to check on our answer sheet. So we got another one we're going to check. So here we go. So I've got 2, so I've got -14 plus or minus the square root of 2 times 2 times 53 all over 2. Okay. So -14 plus or minus 2 on the square root of 53 over 2. And a 2 goes into all these. So I'm left with -7, 1 here and 1 here. So our final answer to this is -7 plus or minus the square root of 53. And if you guys could just be super patient with me for just a second. I don't want to turn off the recording, because when I turn off the recording, I lose what I've recorded. So I need you to give me about 30 seconds. Okay. Okay. So that is the correct answer. So I need to change this on our answer sheet. So I've got -7 plus or minus the square root of 53. Okay. Sorry about that again. This is my fault, so I do apologize about that. And I'll get the correct answer sheet uploaded. I was trying to get things done in a hurry, and when you do things in a hurry, sometimes you make mistakes. So that is all on me. So please forgive me for that. But the correct answer to this is -7 plus or minus the square root of 53. And so if you guys end up seeing answers that you think might be wrong, don't hesitate to email me, and I'll double check them, because I did do this super fast. And so I have found some mistakes. We wanted to get it out to you, but sometimes that happens, that mistakes are made. Okay, so let's get on with radicals. We are still solving. So we are still solving here. And one of the things, because we're doing radicals now, you have got to remember to check it. Remember to check, because sometimes you're going to throw out extraneous solutions. Okay. Now, you already have this isolated. Your square root of x is already isolated. So the way that we solve this is we square both sides. Okay? We're going to square both sides. And it's not a very pretty squared, so let's do that. So when I square the square root of x, I'm left with x. When I square x minus 6, I have to FOIL that. So that's going to be x minus 6 times x minus 6. Okay? So I have x equals x squared minus 6x minus 6x plus 36. So I have x equals x squared minus 12x plus 36. Now I've got something squared, so I've got a quadratic. So in order to do a quadratic, I'm going to subtract x from both sides. So I have x squared minus 13x plus 36. Fortunately for us, that can be factored. So I am left with x. Okay. -4 times -9 gives me positive 36. -4 times -9, when added together, gives me -13. So now I set each one of them equal to 0. Okay. My answers are x equals 4 and x equals 9. But remember, we have to check them. We have to check them. So the first one I'm going to check is 4. So I'm checking x equals 4 first. So I have the square root of 4 equals 4 minus 6. 4 minus 6 is -2. And the square root of 4 is 2. So 4 does not work. You have to mark that out. It doesn't work. You've got to throw it out. Now let's check 9. So I have the square root of 9 equals 9 minus 6. Square root of 9 is 3, and 9 minus 6 is 3. So this one works. The only answer to 8a is 9. Okay, now we're going to graphing. So we are graphing 5x minus 3y equals 15, and you are using the method of your choice. So I'm actually going to do this two different ways. The first way I'm going to do it is we are going to graph it using intercepts. Okay, so I'm going to find the x-intercept first. And the way I find the x-intercept is I put 0 in for y. So I'm going to have 5x minus 3 times 0 equals 15. Okay, -3 times 0 cancels out. 5x equals 15. Divide both sides by 5. And I have x equals 3. That means my x-intercept is 3, 0. I'm going to cross the x-axis right there. Okay, now my y-intercept, I am going to put 0 in for x. So I'm going to have 5 times 0 minus 3y equals 15. 5 times 0 is 0. Don't lose your negative. Students lose that negative in front of that 3. So we've got negative 3y. I divide both sides by negative 3, and my y value is negative 5. So my y-intercept is 0, negative 5. And that is right here. And so here is my line. Now, please remember, do not put these two things in an ordered pair. 3, negative 5 is wrong. That is not the right answer. So don't just put 3 and negative 5 in an ordered pair. They are two completely separate points. Okay? So don't forget that. So that is graphing using the intercepts. Now we are going to graph using y equals mx plus b. And on your final, you will be able to graph using the method of your choice. So you can graph using intercepts, or you can graph using y equals mx plus b. When we graph using y equals mx plus b, the first thing that we do is we solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. Okay, so I'm left with negative 3y equals negative 5x plus 15. Then I am going to divide everything by negative 3. So I have y equals positive 5 over 3x. And that is because we have a negative over a negative. And then 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. When we graph this, we start here. This is our b value. Okay, so we're going to start here. On our y-axis, we start at negative 5. 5 over 3 is our slope. So our slope is 5 over 3. So we are going to go up 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 3. Okay, so we get exactly the same line regardless of what method we choose. Okay, now something that is super important that you are able to identify. You need to be able to identify the difference between a horizontal and a vertical line. Okay, if you get x equals negative 3, what that means is that every single x value is negative 3. Every single one of them. Your y values can be whatever you want them to be. It doesn't matter. Okay, but every single x value is negative 3. And here is x equals negative 3. And we've got a vertical line. Now, the slope of a vertical line is undefined. My slope is undefined. And x equals negative 3 is a vertical line. Okay, so y equals negative 2 means the opposite of all that. So what y equals negative 2 means is that every single one of your y values is negative 2, and x can be anything, but all of your y values are negative 2. So y equals negative 2 is a horizontal line, and your slope of this is 0. Okay? So be sure you've got an idea between horizontal and vertical lines. Okay? Now we're going to go to everybody's favorite part, which is word problems. Everybody loves word problems, but that means we're at the end of the test. So that's good stuff. Okay. Anita bought a pair of slacks at 30% discount. Okay? Anita bought a pair of slacks at a 30% discount. And the amount that she paid for those slacks is $42. Okay? She paid $42 when they were 30% off. What was the original price of the slacks? Now, this is where students make a mistake. 30% is how much she got off. It's 30% off. Okay? That was her discount, was her 30%. If 30% was her discount, then she paid 70% of the price. Okay? So 70% of the original price is what she paid. And we're always going to change percents into decimals. So that 70% turns into 0.70, or to make it easier, it's 0.7. 0.70 and 0.7 are the same thing. And 70% of the original price, which is X, so 70% of the original price equals $42. Okay? 70% of the original price equals $42. So now we are going to divide, and we are dividing by 0.7. We're dividing by 0.7. Okay? So I am going to put this in the box. We're going to do it like this because we're doing this without a calculator. So I have 0.7 on the outside and I have 42 on the inside. Whenever we're doing this, we move our decimal. So this actually becomes 7 divided into 420. And 7 goes into 42 6 times, and then we've got an extra 0 right there. So my answer to this is $60. Okay? The original price of those pairs of pants were $60. Okay? Now, 2 planes leave Chicago and fly in opposite directions. If one travels at 45 miles per hour and the other at 550 miles per hour, at what time will they be 750 miles apart? Okay? At what time will they be 750 miles apart? So, here is Chicago, right here. Chicago. And we have one plane traveling to the east. And that plane is traveling 450 miles per hour. Then we have another train going the opposite direction, and it is traveling 550 miles per hour. Now we know the distance divided by time is going to give us the rate of our plane. Okay? The rate of our plane. Now, I can multiply both of these by time, and I get distance equals r times t. Okay? Distance equals r times t. So this is actually the formula that we're going to use. So I want us to look at this plane here. This plane right here. Okay? We don't know how much time is going to pass. But what we do know is that the plane that leaves Chicago and is going this direction is traveling at a rate of 550 miles per hour, and it's going to travel some amount of time. We don't know what that amount of time is, but we know that it's going to travel some amount of time. Now, our flight that's going the opposite direction is traveling at a rate of 450 miles per hour, and it is traveling the same amount of time. We don't know what that amount of time is, but we do know that the amount of time that each of them is traveling is the same. So we have rate times time equals distance. Okay, rate times time equals distance. Now, we don't know how much each plane has traveled. We don't know the distance that each plane has traveled. But we do know that the distance of my first plane plus the distance of my second plane is going to be 750 miles. Okay, so that is what we do know. We do know that the distance of the 2 planes is 750. So now I can solve. So 550 plus 450 is 1,000. So I have 1,000t equals 750. I divide both by 1,000. Okay. 750 over 1,000 simplifies to t equals 3/4. Okay, so if you mark off the last 0, you have 75 out of 100. That's 3/4 out of $1. Okay, 25, 25, 25 is 75 cents. 25, 25, 25, 25 is $1. So that's 3/4. Or you could just divide 250, but but so a lot of students typically do better. Now, 3/4. Now, our plane left at noon. Okay, our plane left at noon. How many minutes passed for 3/4 of an hour? 3/4 of an hour is 45 minutes. Our plane left at noon. So at 12:45, they are 750 miles apart. Okay. Okay. Last one. Suppose Jim's scores on his first 5 exams were 83, 67, 90, 75, and 92. What score does he have to get on the 6th exam to have an average of an 80? So, we have an 83, a 67, a 90, a 75, and a 92. Now, if I added all those scores up, so I have 83 plus 67 plus 90 plus 75 plus 92, okay? Those are 5 scores. If I wanted to know what his average was today, I would add up those 5 scores and I would divide by 5. That would give me his average today, okay? But he's got a 6th exam. We don't know what that 6th exam is, okay? So we're going to call it X. We're going to call it X. So he's got his 5 exams plus his 6 exams. So I'm no longer dividing by 5. I am dividing by 6. Okay? Now, he wants an average of an 80. Okay? So if his scores are great, he wants to be greater than or equal to an 80. The average scores, he wants to get at least a B in the class. Now, if he gets an 82 or an 83, that's all bonus. But he wants at least an 80, to have an average of 80. So this is how we're going to find out what he needs to get. So we do need to add all these scores together. So I have 83 and 67, 90, 75, and 92. Okay? So 3 and 7 is 10, plus 5 is 15, plus 2 is 17. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 6 is 15, plus 9 is 24, plus 7 is 31, plus 9 is 40. Okay, so now my equation is 407 plus x over 6 is greater than or equal to 80. Okay, now you need to think about, what if I had x over 3 equals 2. How would I solve this problem right here? What would I do to get x by itself? And my answer is I would multiply both sides by 3 is what I would do. So that's what I want to do first here, is I want to multiply both sides by 6. Because when I multiply both sides by 6, I get rid of the 6 in my denominator. So I am left with 407 plus x is greater than or equal to 80 times 6, which is 480. Okay? Then my next step is to subtract 407. I'm going to subtract 407. So my 8 becomes a 7, my 0 becomes a 10. Okay? So Jim has to score at least a 73 on his 6th exam. Okay. Now, again, I'm a little worried that there may be another mistake or two in our review. So if you think that you've got the right answer and the review answer says something different, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. The best thing to study is this review packet. That your finals on Wednesday or Thursday, and I would focus on this review packet. This is the best thing to study. I'll be in my office on Monday from 10 to 4. Tuesday, I'm not on campus, and then I'm on campus again on Wednesday, but I will be returning emails. Good luck, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help.